In this presentation, we will take a look at our payroll options for a customer that has and processes payroll as part of their business. For more accounting information and accounting courses, visit our website at accountinginstruction.info. The first option we have is just not to take on customers, just to take on smaller customers that don't have payroll and just not deal with that complexity, just be dealing with sole proprietors that don't have the payroll option. If they do have payroll then, or if payroll comes up after a relationship with the customer and they want to have payroll, if they've grown, they've done well, then we have some options at that point. One option is that the customer or client works with an outside payroll professional, such as ADP or Paychex. There's many others that just specialize within payroll, or work with a CPA firm to help with the payroll processing, to process payroll, to do the withholdings for payroll, and help with that process and make sure everything is done properly in accordance with the laws and regulations of that location. We can once again work with these ADP or Paychex, these third-party payroll providers, to help support us within our bookkeeping business, or we can actually enter the payroll into the QuickBooks system. We are suggesting here in a simplified bookkeeping form that we avoid that we work with someone outside to enter the payroll, even if it's just small payroll, because one, we'd have to pay for it either way, because we either pay for that service within QuickBooks or we pay for the service for the outside third party, and it may be just easier for us not to take on that payroll, especially if we're not used to or know the region in which both the federal region and the state region that is requiring payroll. So it's just one of those things where the complexity can grow. If we do have someone outside like ADP or Paychex that's processing the payroll, we still are going to have to enter that information into our system. One way that we'll see that, of course, is when the paychecks clear the bank. So once the paycheck clear the bank, we're going to see them in our system. And what we'll see is only the net check that clears the bank. So one way that we can make this adjustment is just to take that net check that we have, enter it into the system as payroll expense, which isn't exactly proper. We'll take a look at these two methods. And one reason we'll take a look at these two methods is to see how it's not exactly proper to do that and what the added information would be. If we process payroll, we'll have more of the detailed information in the system. We'll also take, under this method, any payments that were made that were payroll taxes. So the withholdings for the U.S. would be Social Security, Medicare, federal income tax withholdings for the employer and the employee, any other withholdings related to payroll, and we'll just still group all them into payroll expense. We could group them out into payroll taxes, but that's a little bit more complex, and people don't usually have an understanding of what payroll taxes are as opposed to payroll expenses on the expense side of things. So it's easier, and even QuickBooks will do this, just group together payroll taxes and the payroll into just payroll expense. And so that's the easiest thing to do. And then we can then give this to the bookkeeper at the end of the year, the tax preparer or the CPA firm, and see if they want to make any adjustments to it. And some of those adjustments could be related to just timing differences in terms of when the tax payments were made, when payroll was processed. So those are going to be the two methods we can do. And again, we're kind of leaning towards this method. We'll take a look at processing payroll just so we can see, mainly so we can see the difference between what we're doing and what the payroll is doing. Note that if we have an outside party processing the payroll, when we provide the data to the tax preparer at the end of the year or the CPA firm, these companies will usually provide a summary, including the W-3, the quarterlies, the 941s and the 940s, that we can then provide as part of the year-end detail, so they can take a look at that and make any adjustments that need to be made. They can adjust anything in terms of the payroll and the payroll liability and the payroll taxes if needs to be done at the end. We'll just be on the cash basis here as we input it. If we look at our open items then, we note that this is this open item here. So we had this issue with our paychecks. We saw those paychecks in the system, and now we're going to go back in there and say, okay, those are paychecks. What are we going to do with them? Easiest thing to do with them would just be to categorize them as payroll expense and not break out the gross pay and the net pay. And then when we get the payroll taxes, we'll just call them payroll tax expense as well, and then give this information to the bookkeeper or to the tax preparer at the end of the year, or the CPA firm or the accounting firm, to make any kind of adjustments to tie this out and reconcile to the documentation for payroll, the 941s, the quarterlies, the 940s at the end of the year, the W-3s, the W-2 that we can have provided to them through the third-party provider, whether it be ADP, Paychex, or some other third-party provider. For more accounting information and accounting courses, visit our website at accountinginstruction.info.